Hi, it's Tamsen. And hello, Guelph Moms. Welcome to the podcast that I made for you. This is the Tamsen Connects Guelph Moms podcast, and I made it in response to polls and comments and requests from the Guelph Mom Supporting Moms Facebook group. So you're probably a member of that if you're listening to this or watching this right now. This is a podcast. It's going to be available in video and audio form, as well as having the text available, because I know you're busy and different people like to receive information in different ways. So I'm trying to take care of you. This is in response to comments about how the pandemic has made sometimes already difficult situation even worse. We're talking about things like self-care, how to work with our kids at home, because even now we're heading back to school. Some kids can go back to school, but will the schools be open for long? Or, what happens when your kid is sick? A lot of us are struggling with a lot of new situations. So I've invited, for this little pilot project, I've invited 3 local moms who own businesses and who are part of our group to come and share their experience and their wisdom with us and help us kind of connect and know some of the resources that are available to us as moms in Guelph. So I really hope that this will be helpful, and I would find it valuable to get your feedback, whether this is helpful or how it could be more helpful. And if a lot of people love it, I will continue doing more episodes. So you can easily find me in the Guelph Mom Supporting Moms Facebook group or on Facebook in general, or you can email me at tamsen@tamsenconnects.com. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the episode. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Belinda. I'm Tamsen. This is the Tamsen Connects Guelph Moms podcast that I created for the Guelph Mom Supporting Moms group to try to help people with self-care and sanity and all these wonderful things now that the pandemic is making a time of life that's already kind of challenging even harder. Did you want to take a minute and just talk, because you are Belinda Gould, you run LevelUP Kids Guelph. Did you want to just introduce yourself? Take a minute.
So I'm Belinda Gould. I own and operate LevelUP Kids Learning Center Guelph, which is actually a Canadian franchise that started out in Moncton. And I'm also a mother of 3. So we are right in the pandemic and ever evolving.
Yes, and we are recording this on September 2nd. So it is, we're going to be talking about, because you run virtual classes, and you used to run in-person classes, but you're not doing that much in the fall, right?
No, so with all the guidelines in place, we really looked at the cohort lingo of the school guidelines. And I know there are some after school programs that are going to open up, but they're limiting their space, they're limiting how many kids. But our concern became, well, these kids are still coming from different schools.
Yeah.
And we really didn't want to put any more pressure on parents. And we understand that some parents still need the care, which is why there are other programs that are offering in-person care. But for us, we thought it would be better just to make ourselves available virtually. So all of it will be virtual and online. Okay. Or sorry, in person. So it won't be a recording. It'll be an actual live instructor.
Okay. I think, synchronous versus asynchronous, right? It's not recorded. It's that just makes it way more jargony and complicated, but there will be somebody there.
Yes, right? But because we're kind of like the facilitator. So when the kids are going through the activity, if they need help or if there's a technical glitch, we're actually there to say, okay, let's do this. But it also is a way for parents to have the relief that all they have to do is sign their child onto Zoom and they can go do their stuff while we interact with their children.
Okay. And that's a really big thing. A lot of people were stressed out. Schools were canceled. All of a sudden, I know that I have a 9-year-old. All of a sudden, he was home full time. And it cut down. Luckily, I can work from home. My husband could work from home. So we tried to get like half a day each where we could work, which is easier said than done. And then we just decided, because our family is vulnerable, to not send our son back to school this year. But there's a lot of people that have to, and yet we were saying earlier, there's a lot of chance that even parents who want to send their kids back to school and who do, the schools could be locked down again, or they could be exposed to somebody with COVID and have to isolate, or there's apparently a lot more strict regulations around sending a kid with symptoms of anything, like just a cold, to school now. So there's very likely parents are going to have their kids at home way more and just need some tools with how to deal, right?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting too, because a lot of households will probably only have one computer or one laptop. There's a few where I think they own a computer, but then work has provided them with one. Or I know the schools are trying their best to send out Chromebooks to families that need it.
Okay.
And I think now the main difference between now and March, unfortunately in March, there was this distaste for technology. Families were ill-equipped. So you have families that are in like the rural parts of Guelph where Wi-Fi is not the best. Teachers were ill-equipped because they weren't told that the one day they got to go into their classrooms, that might be the last time they're allowed in. So there was a lot of hate, or they didn't like the tech part.
Resistance?
Right? Yes. There were a lot of parents that were like, I don't ever want to do that again. I'm not a good teacher. I don't have the patience to sit there and teach the kid, while we had to figure out, like probably like yourself, when can my child use the technology and when can I use it? Now the board is trying to reassure everyone it's going to be different this coming September, and it will be, because they've had all this time to figure out how exactly things are going to work. I truly am excited because I know one of the principals for the virtual school in Guelph, and it's going to be, so they're going to have one principal and two vice principals, and it will be a good learning experience for those that are doing remote learning, because you're going to get to have a variety of teachers from different schools. So it's going to be a whole new learning concept for the students. They're not going to know, oh, I got so-and-so teacher, I know how she teaches or he teaches. Okay. It's going to be, it might be someone from, let's say your child goes, so my children are at Courtright, and we get a teacher from Westwood, right? And they might have a different way of interacting with your child. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see what happens with the interaction with these children that are coming from different schools and they're on virtual school, right?
Okay.
And then the in-person school. So we chose all our three kids are going back to school, just because they don't listen to me anymore.
I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Right. I'm sure. And the whole running joke about a lot of moms becoming alcoholics, it is because your children will listen better when someone else is telling them to do something versus you trying to sit there and explain why you have to do it. And
I'm trained. Well, I'm a teacher of adults. I'm trained, and I love having conversations with adults about ideas and la la la. I am not equipped or trained in how to teach kids. So it was just like, I think my husband was like, oh, so now it's April 2nd. School was supposed to be back in and we're being given all these online things. We're going to make a schedule for what you're going to do and what I'm going to do with Tommy. And I'm like, no, we're not. Because I don't need a fourth full-time job at this point. I just cannot handle the stress because it was already pandemic stress. It was already like, I kid you not, it felt like 5 times the dishes when technically we were only supposed to be home for 1 extra meal a day. More mess in the house, me trying to work, and I just was like, I was already at the end of my rope.
So your son was probably like my children, where every 30 minutes they were hungry.
Mm.
Right? And
yes.
every
one
time,
thing. Yeah. finishes one thing, done, still hungry. That was, yeah, totally.
And then every water glass that you have is used because the one that was good 2 hours ago is now dirty, so you need a new one. Yeah, our dishwasher, I think our dishwasher and our laundry machine were running full and I sat there and so finally we actually had to sit down because our kids got into a rut where, okay, I'll just go to mommy if I need a snack, a meal, clothes to wear, and not pick up anything or put things away. So we had to have a family meeting. And I basically had to come and tell them, I'm like, I'm not your maid. I'm not your chef. I'm not your, you're not at an all-inclusive resort, right? So we have morning chores. So they know every night I put the dishwasher on, they have to empty it. Okay. And then during the day, they have, as they finish their meals, they have to put it away. If they don't put it away, the penalty is they have to pay me $5 tip. And so, I mean, it did take only once for them to realize, oh, she's serious. Let's go and put this away. But I think now the challenge will be, just as the teachers are learning about how to try and stay safe with the in-person school and how to utilize as much material and resources as possible for virtual school, I think families now are going to have to do the same thing because we're going into cold weather. We're in Canada. There's no more, I'm going to go to my cottage for the weekend, or I'm going to go for a walk by the lake. That's not going to happen come October, December, November. We might get lucky with the warm weather, but I think now is the time where parents have to sit down with their kids and have expectations that you can meet. Not high expectations, but I think as a family, if you sit down and you say, okay, here are the goals for us this month. Never mind 4 months down the road, this month. And I think that's really going to help set our boundaries. 1 second, sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, my daughter, of course. And think about what activities you want to do when it starts to get cold. So recently, our kids really liked puzzles. And they and so we challenged them. We said, you can't do anything that's 200, anything less than 500 pieces.
Wow, okay.
Because of the fact that the 200 ones, they would get it done in about 3 or 4 weeks, or no, 3 or 4 days, sorry. And then they'd be done. So we were like, okay, let's aim for 500 and up. And they started to realize, okay, if I get the outside done, then it's a little easier to do in chunks. And so we said, okay, do you guys like puzzles? And they're like, yeah. The other thing that we're finding is really helpful is diamond dots.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. I haven't done them, but yeah.
That a small, about that size, will occupy them for 3 hours.
Okay.
Because the beads are so small, and it's a matter of you got to dip your pen to get the bead to stick it onto the sticker to make this picture. And it's a pretty nice picture, some of them are. And so we thought of all these different things where it's going to allow them to not be on the screen, but have something that they can do on their own and share with us. Or we can do it, and then we have family time. So we have the game boards that are out again, the puzzles, that sort of thing. But then we also have our screen time. So my kids are of course, tech pros. They live and breathe tech. Unfortunately, the side effects of owning a coding business. Mm-hmm. But we try and balance it out so that if they are doing the technology part, and I really hope the one thing for families this fall is don't be afraid of the technology. I know there's a lot of things like, oh, well, I don't want to have my child on the computer all the time playing Roblox. Okay, well then let's find something else that they could do that's a little bit better. So there's a storyline. There's something called Storybird, where kids can go online and write their own stories.
Okay.
Right, so it's encouraging them. There's also fun, free typing games.
Okay.
So, because my oldest was like, I'm going to be forever a 2-finger typer. And so I was like, well, why don't you try this game? And I actually, so one of the rules is I try and do a lot of the things that they might be interested in just to see what it is before I allow them to do it. And that's very important because I think when the pandemic first started, and even before, parents were really relying on this as their digital babysitter. Right? And I was hearing a lot of parents say, oh, well, they're playing Roblox and I don't know what it is, but I don't think they should be. And I was like, well, do you know there's a creative side to Roblox? There's a creative side to Fortnite. There's a creative side to Minecraft. It's not all about the gobbling and, defeating. And
Yeah, Tommy and I love playing Minecraft. He totally got me addicted to Minecraft. And it is a very creative game. And it's either, with the creative mode, it's a very creative game because you have whatever supplies you want. You can do whatever and build whatever. But it's also a very creative game when you're playing with limited resources. What are you going to do when you have limited resources and a different kind of problem solving, right? I love that game.
Well, it was funny to see the progression of my children. So one of my sons decided that it was funny to build a tower of sheep. So he would build these sheep, and then he would throw TNT at it.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't think that's the purpose of Minecraft. And he's like, but it's funny. I'm like, no. So now they're at a stage where they're building underwater homes and they're showing me everything. And they get it where they're like, okay, so I'll question them. I'm like, okay, so what is inside the home that you need? And then they get thinking and they're like, oh, yeah, I need this, this, and this. So it's a great learning tool, but it's also a great way to connect with the kids that are now growing up relying on technology. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's not going to go away because that's where we're shifting. Everything's becoming automated. Everything's becoming, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. But that doesn't mean that you can't have the other side, right? So my kids will sometimes be enforced detoxed.
Fair enough.
Where they don't get to do any tech. And so what we've done is we said, okay, if you're going to play Roblox today, you have a 2-hour limit. And that's it. The rest of the time, you have to find activities to do. That's whether that's reading a book, doodling, going outside on the trampoline. I don't care, right? Then the next day, they know they're not allowed any tech.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go out for family walks. We'll go try, go see if we can go for an ice cream at McDonald's. I know that won't be possible in the winter, so we might be investing in the snowshoe before it goes out of stock.
Well, we're trying to make sure that we have, it's crazy, but in August is when all the snowsuits come out into the stores, right? And if you try and get one in October, good luck. So we're trying to make sure we have Tommy's snowsuit and stuff for us to wear, because we're going to try to still go out for family walks. We might get more protest, but we're going to try.
Costco has their stuff out already.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You want a swimsuit and they're selling their snow pants. No swimsuits anywhere, but anyway.
Well, and they were saying that Mountain Equipment Co-op has sold, and they have always been, they couldn't meet the demand this year.
Wow.
right?
More people
Because,
trying to get outside, or yeah.
well, A, we can't travel anywhere other than in our own province. B, there's a lot more people doing camping than there normally used to be. There's I mean, it took us 2 months to get a trampoline because those were sold out. My brother-in-law was told it was going to cost them $15,000 to have an above-ground pool, but they were out of stock, so they'd have to wait till next year.
Wow. And bicycles too, apparently, are extremely hard to get.
Well, we unfortunately we had to buy a new one because my one son broke his completely, that it was unrepairable. And we lucked out because they had just got a shipment. And so we had asked them, we're like, is it because it's like not, it's flying off the shelf because there's a high demand? And he's like, that, but also the fact that, and this was the problem with a lot of outdoor stores, a lot of their supplies were in shipping containers waiting for the lockdown to be done.
Huge effects on businesses, eh?
And I'm really scared to see what people will be doing if and when we're in our second lockdown. It's going to be quite interesting. So I have some friends who are already hoarding.
Okay.
They kind of made a list of what they needed for the first lockdown, so they know what they need for the second lockdown. And so they're like slowly preparing things, and they're like, well, we know this won't perish right away, and this was our favorite go-to thing, so we're just going to put them in a different stockpile, and then we're ready to go. Right. And so I jokingly said to my husband, I'm like, we should kind of do the same, but like really figure out where we want us to be prepared.
You're reminding me, I order, my mom doesn't like being online, but she let me convince her to let me order groceries for her. I ordered 2 kilograms of M&Ms this time. That's what she wanted.
That's priority, right? Like, I think I made a joke about it that everyone was stockpiling on Lysol wipes and toilet paper because those were the things you couldn't get, right?
Yeah.
And
Still
I had a friend.
Lysol wipes.
You can't, no. And I had a friend who sent me a picture of her priority, which was a case of beer. Right? All these different cases of beer. She's like, if I'm going into lockdown, I need. And we just kind of laughed. I said, yeah, my lockdown food would be chips, candy, and coffee.
I ordered, I think, 3 of the Mondo boxes of Earl Grey tea from Costco, and they don't even have them anymore. Yeah. I think we're all kind of dreading a potential second lockdown, no matter what we've decided about school or our own work or whatever. So let's, if we can, in the last few minutes, maybe review, because you had some really good tips. Of course, people should check out LevelUP Kids if they want some online virtual. I saw that you had some like week-long programs. Do you have like just individual days that people can?
So right now we have our staggered start fun days, we're calling them, where it's going to be like 2 hours max, because kids are done by the end of 2 hours. It doesn't matter how engaging you are. They want to go do something else. So those are going to be like STEM activities, fun games, just a chance for them to socialize and share what they know about COVID-19 in regards to keeping safe. And then that way they're not so nervous. Our hope is that they're not too nervous when they do start school.
Okay.
The other ones that we're trying to do is I'm trying to supplement where a lot of JKs are coming in this year, and they're going to miss out on the social aspect of it. Even if they're doing distance or if they're doing in person, there's none of that carpet sitting. There's none of that, let's work together because of all of our guidelines. So we're doing Kindy Fun on Thursdays for kids where they can come online, and we're going to try and make it as fun as we can, where it's only 45 minutes for kindergartens, and they're going to learn a letter, a number. We're going to play games with those two items, and then they get to take home with them a craft to remind them, oh, that's the letter A, this is what it sounds like, and these are some of the words, right? This is the number 2. It goes after 1 and before 3. So that we're reinforcing what they might be learning in remote learning. Then we're looking at digi programs, which are like the arts, because I think a lot of arts and music are going to get hit hard. Same with phys ed, because of the close proximity that you need, but you can't do.
Well, and Tommy was learning the recorder, and you have to blow into that, and that's probably not going to be something that they want people doing in school either.
Well, I think they've already said like music is not going to happen this year.
That's too bad.
Because a lot of the instruments are shared.
Yeah, it's understandable, but it's still too bad. Yeah.
So it'll come down to parents paying for virtual or in-person lessons to keep up with any of the music that their child might be doing. So we're trying to hit all the points where it might be taught in school, but not enough. And then if your child is a different type of learner, we want to encourage them.
Okay.
Right, so we do have our coding, we have our hands-on STEM, but we also have our STEAM part with the arts, because we want to make sure that we're offering as much as we can, but we also want to, I didn't want to feel, because I know there's this big debate about public education. And I didn't want parents to think like we were just another private business coming over to take over what public education should be about.
Okay.
So hopefully you'll see us in the fall. We're actually hoping to work with the boards to say, no, you tell us what you'd like to see. How can we help you? How can we help your teachers so that it still feels like a community? Because in the end, it's about the village raising the children.
And it's one of the hardest things about having to stay physically apart is that we are struggling to somehow do that virtually or, like from far away. And there were also some really good suggestions you've had about like really figuring out what you can do in your own household, getting your kids to help. And having only one child, for somebody with 3 kids, or that is going to be even more important. But yeah, I don't know. And technology limitations too. I don't know how you do it with a whole bunch of kids, but turn taking or doing something they can both do at the same time. I don't know. I'm sure people will have to figure out a way.
It's really important to as well to explain to the kids, and I really hope parents take this time to share their feelings. I grew up where my parents, they would fight, but I never saw the reconciliation.
Ooh.
Right? I'm sorry, it was my fault. This is why I did it. And so I try and make it really important to include my kids. And I tell them, I'm like, I don't want to scare you. This is what's going on. This is what we need to do. And then they'll give me, they'll give me their view on it. And they'll say, okay, well, what if I did this? I'm like, okay. So our big thing is they're okay now with wearing a mask.
Okay.
But they forget and they do this. And then, they touch their eyes and so I had to sit down with them and I had to say, you're protected from the inside, but what do you think is on the outside of your mask? And they're like, and then my youngest was like, germs. I'm like, exactly. So when you take your hand on the outside of your mask and then you rub it to rub your eyes, where do you think those germs are going? And so they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, so these are the reasons why I tell you to keep your hands together or in your pocket when we're outside. And I don't want them to be afraid, but I want them to think of solutions where, okay, if I can't do this, what can I do to still be safe but have fun?
Mm-hmm. And they have to know the why before they know why they're not supposed to do something and what might be another solution, right? And it's a problem solving activity.
It is.
Well, skills.
And that's the thing, right? So I think in our last discussion we had about creativity and how somehow we've become buzzkills, right? We've said, this is how you have to do things, even though people will do this to get to the same spot. And then you call those people as, oh, they're just dreamers. They don't know what they're doing. But in reality, that's what we were created. Like, if we were all supposed to be exactly the same, then we'd all look the same. We'd do all the same, which I always tell my kids is boring.
Very boring. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
So it's the same thing. What might work for my family might not work for your family. I know for a fact where it had to take my husband's actually idea, because he sat there and he's like, you're doing too much. Our kids are old enough now. Get them to help you. And so it really I'm like, okay, what can you do to help me so I don't feel like I'm behind on everything?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the starting point for all of us right now is this is not going away. It's going to either get worse or better, but it's not going away for at least another 2 to 3 years. I hate to be the buzzkill, but even if we do get a vaccine, it might work, it might not work. It's the same thing with the flu vaccines, right? It's going to be a hit and a miss. So instead of being the ostrich burying our head under the sand and hoping it all goes away, I really hope for families this time that you have the extra 2 weeks before school actually starts virtually or in person. Take the time, think about what worked this summer, how you can change that into a winter thing, and then don't forget all the resources that are out there. There's plenty of resources. There's my programs, which are paid. There's a bunch of free programs that are out there. And the way I say it is if you're going for the free programs, that's great, but it might not give you the freedom you need to go have your break, right? It's like a gym membership. I have a gym membership, and I think I went like 3 times in the year. And I know for myself, I need a motivator to go with me in order to be that membership. So that's what I say about paid activities, right? It's a motivation to keep going, because if you get stuck, you have someone there to talk with. So don't be afraid to do the networking. I love when we're moving from in-person to virtual, because you still got the connection. It might not be the connection you need or want, but it's some sort of connection. So don't be afraid to check in with buddies. Have a virtual coffee or a wine date, whatever you want, as long as you're making that weekly commitment to keep in touch with someone in the adult world, right? Because as moms, we're in the children world 24/7.
I need it. I know that I need the social, like talking like this, like ideas. And that's one reason why I love doing podcasts, is because I get to meet so many different people with different opinions, different experiences. And I do need this so much. Thank you. But I think it's one of the things too, that we really need to figure out what we need, right? Some people are introverted and they're happy spending a lot of their time alone, but you really need, especially as a mom, to figure out, when you only have 10 minutes a day, how do you need to spend that to really rejuvenate yourself as much as possible? And it's going to be different for everyone. Like, I know in the group, quite often people are like, I don't know what to do for downtime. And we get tons and tons of people telling us what they do. Yeah. But I always try and stop to say, you need to figure out what's going to work for you and do that.
And don't be afraid to tell your kids that, right? And that was the one learning point for me, is my mother-in-law said to me when her 2 boys were younger and it got just too much, she would lock herself in the bathroom. She knew the boys were safe. She would just sit there and have her good cry or whatever she needed. And she said the boys would put their fingers under the door and to say, Mommy, and she would just be like, I need 5 minutes to myself. Everything's fine. Please just go do something. I will be out when I'm ready, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's, unfortunately, society has put that pressure on us to always be on, right? The kids got to do this. I saw one post and it made me really angry when they said, well, that's what you signed up for when you decided to have children.
Yeah.
No. We're human beings. We have needs and wants as well as the children. Yes, our children are a priority, but if I'm not mentally able to be there for them, then how am I being effective? Right? So you're right, and your child needs to know that you're not superwoman. It's okay.
And they also need to have a healthy understanding that they're not the only thing in the whole world that matters. Right?
Yes. I always tell them, I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but and we're doing this with our oldest right now, because he's like, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be this and this and this. I said, do you realize when you go to post-secondary, you are one out of thousands of applicants? How are you going to make it so that you stand out amongst thousands? And kids don't get that concept because we always encourage them, but we try to take away the hurt, but we shouldn't. Right? So when my husband and we have an argument, I make it a point to make sure the kids are around when I know I've goofed.
Okay.
Right? I hate doing it because it affects my pride, right? Because it's like, but I do it because my parents never did that. So I never knew how to reconcile because I never saw it.
And we are the biggest examples for our kids, right? Like I find it, one of the things I decided really early on is I was going to apologize to my son when I goofed. So not even to my, never mind it, whatever is going on with my spouse, but sometimes I've done things that I wasn't terrifically happy about. And I'm like, I'm actually going to apologize to him and say that I'm sorry, because it's important that I want him to be polite. I want him to know how. Yeah. And it is a little bit of a, but I never try to pretend to be a perfect parent. So I don't have that pride to deal with, at least.
But you know what? When you show how vulnerable you are, like there's times where I get mad and then I'll turn around and I'll say, I am so sorry that you had to see this. But right now what you're doing is making me feel that I can't control, right? It's all about control. For me, it's like, if you don't do this, I feel like I'm losing control. So I talk to them. But I'm also one of the few parents, I think, where my grade 7 will still come to me when he has a problem. He's not afraid to talk to me because he gets it. I'm still his safe zone. And sometimes he'll just lash out at me and I'll be like, whoa, I kind of have feelings too. And he's like, right. And I'm like, so let's just talk about it. And when he's wrong, he actually will come to me and apologize before the teacher actually calls me or before someone even tells me, right? He comes with his, I call it the tail between the legs, and like, and he's got the puppy eyes. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I know I did. But that's what I wanted to encourage. And I tell my kids, I'm like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to make mistakes because that's what we're here for. We are not made perfect. If we were, we'd be boring.
That was actually last week's confidence theme in my group. Yeah. Is that, yes, perfection is very, it can be very, very boring. It's very, we think of perfection as like fitting in the same slot, right? So.
But anyway. If you ever want to have fun, watch a toddler try to put a circle into a square peg. That's life.
Try to walk is hilarious.
Right? That's life. That's what life is. We're trying to put a circle into a peg, into a square. It just is not going to work.
No matter how many times we try. Exactly.
Like you whittle it down. No, it just, And I really hope that we can, I think this COVID thing in some ways is helping us realize, okay, we need to step back as a family, figure out what works, and let's try it out. It's trial and error. It's trial and error for everyone.
Yes. And I think that's a really important point too, is to just try something and then evaluate whether it works, and drop what doesn't work or pivot it, and be willing to try again, because we need to redo stuff in our house. And I will just leave it at there for now. We need to do more. But anyway, well, thank you very much. It's afternoon right now. I'm so glad you took time to come and join me, and hopefully I will get this episode up really, really soon.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm really happy to share it, because like I really hope for families. That's my only hope. Like for me, I will admit it. I am not the perfect. I'm the meme that you see every summer where it says, I have to remember to close my windows because I'm sure the neighbors think there's a crazy woman in the house. Right? And my kids will admit it too. I like screech so loud, and my husband will be like, the windows are open. I'm like, oh shoot. Right? So I get it. And it was frustrating being locked down, because you went from having all these freedoms to none. So it took a while, and I had anxiety because my business was affected, and I had to call all these people, and it just wasn't me. It was my staff who was struggling for hours. It was families who didn't know when the next paycheck were coming in. And it didn't help as well when you had a lot of families unfortunately separating. Right? And it's a toll, because I honestly think, and this has been going on for a couple of years back, I said, I wish society never taught us that in order to make it, you need a big house, you need 2 cars, you need so many children, you need the perfect job. And I said, that's not what life is. And after having kids, you realize it, because your kids, they'll listen to you when they want to. Right? It's selective hearing, selective memory. And I sat there and I'm like, that's really what life is. It's a matter of choices that we make. And how do we encourage this diversity instead of falling under all these rules? So it's funny now to hear my 7-year-old, she'll go, because my husband will still be like, oh, wouldn't it be neat to live in a mansion? And she sounds like me now, because she'll go, but then who's going to clean it, Daddy? Right? And he's like, well, if we live in a mansion, we'll have maids. And she's like, yeah, but what are you going to put in all those extra rooms? And she's like, you're just going to put more junk in it. Right? That's what we do. We buy a bigger house, we fill it up. So we have to move to a bigger house, and then we have to move to a bigger house. And so what I told my kids is, I wish we had never had that deal. And they're like, why? Why wouldn't you want a big house? I said, I would rather have a small house with everything I need and take that money and make more memories. And so now my kids are like, oh, so I go, look at our house. Do you think Mommy has time to clean our house? And they're like, yeah. I go, well, see, so if we lived in a mansion, do you think it would be any cleaner? Right? And they get it now, because I'm trying to break that mold.
Yeah. And it is really like the looking for success or feelings of happiness by getting all the stuff. For the people who are not lucky enough to get the stuff, they keep thinking, oh, I'll be happy when. But there's the other people who get all the stuff, and they're like, why am I not happy now? And what the heck do I do now? I got more stuff, more to clean, more to take care of, more demands. And I'm still, and the thing is, like, I wonder if people think Oprah Winfrey or whoever they consider the most successful never has any unhappy feelings. It's like, what?
No, because we're all human, right? We all have our depression. We all have our little secrets. We all have our imperfections. But I wish more people would embrace it. Yeah. Share it. talk about it. And I really feel sorry for those veterans like who are suffering, because it's a sign of weakness. That's another stigma, right? If you say you have a problem, if you say you're not imperfect, it's a sign of weakness. No, it's not. I think it's a sign of strength, because you're showing that you're doing something about it to help yourself to be better. Right? And I really hope with this COVID that more people come out and see, and this is the scary part, because we've been in isolation so long, people are getting fed up. Right? We're being more impatient. We're being more inconsiderate. We can't tolerate like we used to, because our freedom has been taken away
and
by something
so much change too.
This small.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I've been trying to teach my kids is, it doesn't matter how many mean people there are, you don't know their backstory. So give them a smile, give them an air five, and say, hey, it's okay. Right? Yeah. If we change the attitude little by little, maybe then it will get better at it. But unfortunately right now, yeah, we just need to stick to that one hope, to say, if I can just get through this day, stop setting the expectations that are not reachable, and just start with little things. I like the Holderness family. Okay. Because they joke about it, right? They're a YouTube family that they're joking about Corona and the things. But in real life, she's an introvert. He's not. He has ADHD, I believe.
Okay.
Right? And they are on there. They let it all out. They make fun of themselves, but it's so refreshing because they are still trying to encourage people to stick with it. It's hard. Okay. We get it, right? And they make fun of themselves. And I'm like, that's perfect. I share their videos with my kids, and they're like, okay. I'm like, see, it's okay to be afraid. Just roll with the punches.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Tamsen Connects Guelph Moms podcast. I would love feedback from you if you found it helpful, if you'd like something to change, if you'd like me to have a particular person or topic covered, or if you'd like to be a guest. And you can reach me through Guelph Moms Supporting Moms on Facebook, or you can email me at tamsen@tamsenconnects.com. Thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it. There are 3 episodes in this pilot series. So if you haven't checked out the other ones, at least to see if the topic might interest you, please be my guest and do that, and let me know what you think.